Straight ahead, in the hunt, the Republican primary for U.S. Senate in Texas expands as Congressman Wesley Hunt jumps in. He tells us why he thinks he can beat Senator John Cornyn and Attorney General Ken Paxton. On the stump, Democratic U.S. Senate candidate James Talarico campaigns in Fort Worth, why he says he has no problem pushing back against his own party. And controversial deployment. Texas lawmakers react to President Trump's and Governor Abbott's decision to send Texas National Guard troops to Chicago. Good morning, I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas starts now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics. Hope your Sunday is off to a great start. We begin with a political jolt in the Republican primary for U.S. Senate in Texas. Congressman Wesley Hunt of Houston entered the race this past week after months of speculation and advertising on TV to boost his name recognition. He joined John Cornyn, who is seeking a fifth term, and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. A new poll by the University of Houston and Texas Southern University out this past week, conducted before Hunt got into the race, shows Paxton with a 1 percentage point lead over Cornyn, 34 to 33%. Hunt has 22%. 11% are unsure. We went one-on-one with Congressman Hunt. Hours after he announced his campaign, he came to our Fort Worth studio, and I asked him why he decided to run.
This race cannot be about a blood feud between Ken Paxton and John Cornyn. This race has got to be about Texas. And what I've watched over the course of the past few months is a lot of mudslinging, a lot of name calling, but no one's talking about what's happening on our southern border. No one's talking about energy policy. No one's talking about keeping Texans safe. And so I am running to focus solely on the issues that matter most to Texans.
You're going up against two people who obviously have a lot of name recognition across the state.
Yeah.
You don't. You're from Houston, obviously well known there, but not well known up here. And so what do you believe you bring to the table, and what is your path to victory?
I think it's a fresh face. It's a fresh look. It's new leadership. When John Cornyn was first elected to office, I was 2 years old. When he became the Attorney General in 1992, that was when the Dream Team was playing in Barcelona. I was playing a Pop Warner football and drinking Capri Sun and Necto Cooler and eating orange slices after my soccer games. It is time for us to have a new form of leadership, a new age of leadership, and a new generation of leadership. And I'm here to tell you that the United States Senate is not a retirement community. This is a young man's game.
A lot of people think the fact that you're in this race now, that you're going to force a runoff in May, a primary runoff. Would you agree with that?
Potentially. But again, I just want the people of Texas to decide and to give them the best candidate and the best man for the job. And it's my humble opinion that is somebody who is young, someone who is America first, someone who is a Texan tried and true, someone who is a West Point graduate, someone who served 8 years active duty as an Apache pilot, deployed to Iraq, flew 55 combat air missions in Baghdad, someone who loves this country and is willing to die for this country. When given that option, I believe the people of Texas are going to support me.
Do you think you will get President Trump's endorsement?
I don't think this race is entirely about that. I think President Trump's endorsement has to be earned. If you've noticed, he hasn't endorsed anyone in this race. And I would love to have President Trump's endorsement, especially in the Republican primary, because it ends it. But that's not what this is about. This is about putting our best foot forward and showing the president and showing the people of Texas what America first really means.
You are really putting yourself out there because you're going to have to give up your seat in Congress.
Sure.
And I'm wondering, do you have, obviously running statewide in Texas is very expensive. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, do you have big backers that you've secured?
Sir, if I didn't have enough backers, if I didn't have enough support, I certainly wouldn't be doing this.
Are you running because you see Senator Cornyn as vulnerable in the primary and Paxton vulnerable in a general election?
Well, of course. That's exactly what the numbers show. That's exactly what the data shows. John Cornyn has spent over $20 million on this race already in the primary. Imagine that. A 20-year incumbent spends over $20 million, and they say he is closing the gap, but he should be at 60 to 70% no matter what, and he's barely cresting 30%. And that's been consistent across all polls, which tells me that the people of Texas are looking for an alternative.
And you think that Paxton is weak in a general election? You think
the data absolutely shows that. But again, this is not about me trying to compare who can win or who can lose in a general election or who can win or who can lose in a primary election. This is about choosing the best candidate. And if we choose the best candidate, if we get this right in the primary, if we get this right in the general election, it'll take care of itself, sir.
So the Cornyn campaign has put out a lot of quotes this morning.
It's really good. That's great.
I want to read you some, and you tell me what you think.
Great.
Here it goes. Senator Cornyn has soared ahead in the latest polling and will win this election. Representative Wesley Hunt is a legend in his own mind. No one is happier this morning than the national Democrats who are watching Wesley continue his quixotic quest for relevancy, costing tens of millions of dollars that will endanger the Trump agenda from being passed. What do you say to that?
That means I'm right over the target zone, and I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. It is clear that D.C. has made their pick, but this is Texas. D.C. does not pick who represents Texans. Texans do.
And so you talked a little bit about your issues that are important to you.
Yes, sir.
So what specifically are your campaign priorities?
Like I said, my first order of business when I become a senator is going to repeal the gun control legislation that John Cornyn authored. I think that's just an abomination, and people here in Texas just flat out deserve better. Securing our border is something that's absolutely critical to me. It's the number one job of the federal government is to keep our border secure. Lastly, Texans do not want to see D.C. running Texas. They want to see fighters taking Texas to the swamp, not the other way around. If I focus on those three priorities, I think I'm going to be just fine.
As far as the government shutdown that we're seeing, what do you think it's going to take to end it?
Democrats being reasonable human beings. And right now, they're not being reasonable at all. We passed a clean CR out of the House with, by the way, a 2-seat majority, which is phenomenal. This is the third time we have actually come together and did our job. We sent it over to the Senate, and every single Republican voted for it. And Democrats are the ones that have stopped this. They have to own this, and they have full control of ending this. We did our job. President Trump has done his job, and now it's time for them to do theirs.
We recently interviewed Senator Cornyn, and we have made multiple requests to interview Attorney General Paxton, but have not heard back from his campaign. Cornyn announced he raised nearly $3.4 million in the third quarter between his campaign and committees supporting his campaign. He's got $10.5 million cash on hand. No word yet from the Paxton campaign or Hunt's campaign. We spoke with SMU political science professor Matthew Wilson about this race.
I think Hunt is counting on the fact that there are enough Republicans who are both suspicious of Cornyn's ties to the establishment, but also wary of Paxton's corruption. If there are enough such people, then Hunt could capture them and potentially have a path to victory. I'm not sure there are enough people who are sufficiently disillusioned with both candidates to make that work. I think the difficulty is that both Cornyn and Paxton have some pretty committed supporters. It's going to be hard to budge a lot of people off their existing preferences.
Do you think that this is going to force a runoff?
I think it has a good likelihood of doing that because right now, Hunt polls at least in the 20s. And so what we typically see in the polling is both Cornyn and Paxton somewhere in the 30s, Hunt somewhere in the 20s. If they all maintain at least that floor of support, that means you're looking at a runoff. So I think there is a fair likelihood, if all three candidates remain through primary day, that there would be a runoff in the race.
In the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate, the candidates announced their fundraising. State Representative James Talarico raised more than $6.2 million in 3 weeks in the third quarter. He raised a record haul in Texas for a Senate candidate for their first quarter in the race. Former Dallas Congressman Colin Allred collected more than $4.1 million in the third quarter. The University of Houston Texas Southern University poll shows Allred leading Talarico by 4 percentage points, 46 to 42%. 12% are unsure.
Y'all help me welcome James Talarico!
Talarico brought his campaign to Fort Worth last Wednesday night, and he attracted a standing room only crowd of more than 1,200 people. One of his main campaign themes is to criticize billionaires' influence on policy and society, claiming they divide Americans, Democrats and Republicans, and he wants that to stop. Afterwards, I went one-on-one with Representative Talarico, and I asked him what he makes of the large crowds in response to his campaign.
It's been overwhelming, the amount of people showing up to our events in every part of the state. Blue communities, red communities, urban, suburban, rural, all over Texas. We've seen thousands of people showing up to join this movement to take power back from working people in this country.
So if you are to win this time next year, about a year from now, how do you turn your message into action in the U.S. Senate, which is described as a club?
You know, I have experience working in the trenches of the Texas legislature, which, as you know, is not an easy place to work as a Democrat. But I was able to work across the aisle with my Republican friends to pass major legislation to bring down the cost of health care, bring down the cost of child care, bring down the cost of housing. That's exactly what I'll do if I'm elected as U.S. Senator from Texas.
I got to ask you about the government shutdown.
Yeah.
Where are you on that?
Well, the fact that the Republican majority is willing to shut down the government just to raise people's premiums and kick people off their health care is unconscionable. And I'm glad that Democratic legislators in Congress are finally standing up to that kind of extremism and fighting back on behalf of working people in Texas and across the nation. Texas is going to be one of the states that's most hurt by this Republican bill that they're trying to pass. It's going to raise premiums for over 1 million Texans, and that's going to make it harder for folks to get the health care they need. And there's an estimate that 51,000 Americans will die needlessly every year if all of these Republican cuts are passed. We can't let that happen. In the richest nation in the world, no one should die because they can't afford their health care.
You've been very critical, including tonight, of the National Democratic Party.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, is that just on their tactics or is that on their policy? And if you are elected, my question is, if you disagree with what the Democrats nationally are pushing, are you really going to have the strength to push back and vote against what the national Democrats want?
I'm a proud Texas Democrat, but I already have a religion and I already have a sports team. The reason I'm a part of this political party is because it is a vehicle to organize working people, win elections, and make people's lives better. And if the Democratic Party is not doing that, which it hasn't done that for the last few election cycles, then we have to share hard truths. We have to be honest. I have to speak truth to power, whether it's in my party or not. And in this campaign, I'm going up against the political establishment in both political parties. And I'm a voice for all Texans, and I value that independence. I'm able to think for myself, and I'm able to push back when I need to, regardless of which party I'm pushing back on.
Isn't that going to hurt?
It might ruffle some feathers, it might anger the powers that be, but we desperately need a senator who's going to fight for the 30 million Texans who live here and not for DC party bosses.
Allred has also been crisscrossing the state and focusing on unrigging the economy and lowering costs for Texans. No word yet if former Congressman Beto O'Rourke and current Congressman Joaquin Castro of San Antonio will run for U.S. Senate. Candidates can start filing their paperwork with the Secretary of State's office for the March primary on Saturday, November 8th, and they have until Monday, December 8th. Coming up later, the controversial deployment of the Texas National Guard to Chicago. But next, how the redistricting battle over the new congressional maps in Texas is shaping up when Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas returns. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Now to the redistricting battle over the state's new congressional maps in Texas. On Friday, a court hearing wrapped up that will determine if the newly drawn districts will be allowed for the upcoming March primary or if the existing districts will be used instead. Multiple plaintiffs, including LULAC, the NAACP, and Democratic lawmakers, say Republicans illegally used race when drawing the new maps, which will hurt their ability to select candidates to represent them. Texas Republicans and the state deny that, saying when they drew the maps, that will give them 5 new districts. They only considered partisanship, which the courts have upheld. The 3 federal judges in El Paso who are overseeing the case are expected to issue a ruling in the next week. That ruling will likely be appealed directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. The uncertainty over the new maps is having an impact here in North Texas. If the new maps stand, the number of Democratic districts will drop from 3 to 2. The 32nd congressional seat, now held by Democrat Julie Johnson, will become a Republican majority district. A number of Republicans have already filed to run, and one high-profile Republican considering a run is State Representative Katrina Pierson, who discussed this with me recently.
Well, you're right. There has been a lot of pressure for me to run for Congress. I'm just truly humbled and just blessed to have so many people across the state have been very active here in the Republican Party for 15 years, fighting alongside so many people for conservative values. And so there is an effort to recruit me in this race. I am considering it. I'd be silly not to. I love the people here. And it is my home.
Under the new maps, one of the 2 remaining Democratic seats is the 33rd congressional district, now represented by Congressman Mark Vesey. The district moves from both Tarrant and Dallas counties to just Dallas County. A number of people are considering the 33rd, including Vesey and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, whose home is now in this district, not in the 30th congressional district, which she currently represents. Congresswoman Julie Johnson says she'll run in this district if the new maps stand, because a large portion of her current district is in this new district too. And former state representative and Dallas City Council member and past LULAC National President Domingo Garcia previously told us he has formed an exploratory committee on a potential run because the district includes Oak Cliff and has a majority of Latinos. Crockett or Vesey may decide to run in the new 30th congressional district, which will have a majority of African Americans. This district now includes a larger portion of Tarrant County than before. In a statement, Vesey said, quote, "I absolutely intend on running for re-election. I've spent my career fighting for North Texas, and I'm not about to back down now. I will be on the ballot. I'm in the fight, and I fully intend to win." While Congresswoman Crockett says she is focused on re-election, the University of Houston Texas Southern University poll shows she leads a hypothetical Democratic primary for U.S. Senate. She's got 31%, which is higher than former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, State Representative James Talarico, or former Congressman Colin Allred. I asked the Congresswoman recently if she is entertaining a Senate run. When we spoke last time, I asked you about running for Senate. You really didn't give it much of a thought. You said you were focused on your congressional race. Have you changed your mind on that? And are you considering a run for U.S. Senate?
No, I'm focused on the congressional race, but we'll see. I mean, filing isn't until the end of December. Right now, you have a Democratic primary that is heating up. Every time a poll comes out, somehow I end up very near the top, if not the top. And so, again, I think that this is about, what the people are asking for. We'll see.
Stay tuned. Up next, lawmakers react to the Texas National Guard being deployed to Chicago. When Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas comes right back. Now to President Trump's and Governor Greg Abbott's controversial deployment of the Texas National Guard to Chicago. It's a move resisted by Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who opposes it. And Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt, a Republican, told the New York Times that he opposes the deployment of the Texas National Guard troops to Chicago, too. He said it violates his belief in states' rights. A federal judge temporarily blocked the deployment on Thursday. Sarah Jenkins has this week's brief.
A federal judge said Thursday that no troops would be deployed in Illinois for the next 14 days. The deployment of 200 Texas troops came as ICE agents increased enforcement and protests raised tensions. Some Texas troops were at an Illinois ICE facility ahead of Thursday's hearing. The judge ruled that there's no credible evidence of an organized rebellion in Illinois, nor was there any evidence the federal government has been unable to enforce the law without bringing in troops. The judge's ruling has been appealed. For The Brief, I'm Sarah Jenkins.
Thank you, Sarah. Two state senators who are both running for Texas Attorney General are reacting to this. We hear from both Republican Joan Huffman of Houston and Democrat Nathan Johnson of Dallas.
I think what's happening in some of these cities and this lawlessness and what people, who live in those cities have to deal with is awful. I don't think we would ever let one of our cities get that bad in Texas. And to the extent that Governor Abbott has the authority and the power to do that, then I support Governor Abbott in his decisions of how he wants to assist at a national level.
Abbott should have stood up to Trump, and our Attorney General, Ken Paxton, should have sued to stop it.
And so if you were in office right now, that's what you would be doing?
Yes, that is what I would do.
If that is the case, do you have a good argument?
You mean, would I have an argument against the Trump administration?
Yeah.
Sure, he went outside of his statutory authority to deploy the National Guard, to federalize state National Guard. He's supposed to do so in cases of emergencies, insurrections, invasions. That's not what's happening. We have protests, there have been incidences of violence, but throughout the history of this country, the dramatic step of deploying the National Guard in a state, in a city, has occurred only in the most extreme of circumstances, when we have multiple days of riots. These are not riots. These are protests, which occasionally turn violent, which is condemnable, and I applaud law enforcement for trying to squelch it. But sending the National Guard there, that's a stunt.
You can watch the full interview with Congressman Hunt on our CBS Texas YouTube page, and while you're there, hit the subscribe button. That's Eye on Politics for this week. Thanks for watching. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. I'll see you next week, and from all of us here, have a great Sunday.